So here we are in one of the two semi-finals, just begun, game one. On a bound on the play with mono blue tempo-ish control-ish. Mana leaks the Malevolent Hermit against Tigrak's blue-green Unctus Nardu. And then deploys a threat. And Tigrak says, thank you very much, I will deploy my namesake card, Nardu Winged Wisdom. And On a Bound says, I will reluctantly give you a Nardu trigger, but I will then have a Nardu. Less good in his deck than in Tigrak's, but probably still alright. Free land for Tigrak. So the relevant 1-mana spells here, Serum Visions, the Unsummon, which is what he has, Bounce Off, and no 4th land for On a Bound, which he definitely would have played, obviously Pump the Tempest Gen and just because to play a land. So no 4th land, so 3 spells. Tigrak plays an Unctus, which doesn't seem like a show of strength, but who knows. 6 Paraflyers over there, maybe 7 with an island. There is an Ancestral Vision that was suspended on turn 1 coming off now. It's important to know about. So now we do hit the land. We attack for, well, it's not quite going to be a 2-turn clock unless we deploy something else. We are going to deploy something else. We're going to take the Unctus, which means that the... what does it pump? It pumps artifact creatures? Yeah, and it can make things artifact creatures. Okay. So On a Bound says... bounce the Volatile Stormdrake again. I have all the flyers. I'm attacking for nearly half your life total. I'll loot twice of Unctus's ability now that I control Unctus. And basically daring Tigrak to do something with his board of Hex Parasite and lands before it's too late. And too late is going to be pretty soon. You're looking at a chomp block as it stands. Now, it'd be interesting to play another Nardu here and a few Hex... Okay, so we do have another Nardu. We've got 4 Hex Parasite activations to play with if we're feeling frisky. Would be pretty frisky. Finds a Birds of Paradise. Yeah, Tigrak, who is very good with this deck and had great results with it, or an equivalent deck when it was legal last time, is just going for it. So it looks like we have to chump the Tempest Djinn or die. Shackles will do it. Unless this reveals something crazy. Labman, not quite what you need. Okay. Game 1 to On a Bound. Snuck into the top 8 in 8th place. I mean, I don't know about snuck in. Went 4-2, but yeah, doing pretty well in the top 8 so far. I would guess that one of the things Nardu is not super happy to play against is counter spells. You know, you're trying to resolve a 3-mana thing at sorcery speed, although you do have Birds of Paradise to try and do it on turn 2. If you don't, your deck is, you know, some semi-reasonable creatures or whatever, but it doesn't really do the thing. I guess you can Unctus combo without Nardu. Just loot away your whole deck and cast a Laboratory Maniac. That's another thing that sounds not super easy to do into a bunch of mana leaks. Just checking in on the other semi-final. Bant Nardu against a different mono blue. I don't think we've ever had a large Penny Dreadful tournament in which the top 2 was 2 and 2 of a deck, and this isn't quite that, because there are different builds and even different colours in the Nardu cases, but it's kind of interesting. In the other semi-final, I think those are still failure in turn 4 of game 1, but I guess I'm not sure. Yeah, PD bot confirms. Tempest Djinn facing down a 4/4 Luminarch Aspirant and an Ardu. Very mid-rangey in a way. Okay, so here we're off to start with Birds of Paradise, which might allow you to slip a Nardu through under Mana Leak. Suspend Ancestral Vision for Honor Bound, so now we just need to spam our interaction and then gas up on turn 5. But Nardu does get snuck in, so I think that's got to be the ideal opening in this matchup in particular, and maybe just in general. But we do have a Volatile Stormdrake, so we're swapping. And that's pretty bad. Tigrak draws a Spell Pierce off the trigger. So ideal start into ideal start on both sides here, I'd say, just about. A Fauna Shaman missed land drop for Tigrak. Spell Pierce up. Ancestral Vision ticks down to 2. So you probably attack here. Okay, another Ancestral Vision on suspend, yeah. So even though he's got 2 Ancestral Visions on suspend, Honor Bound in a weird way is the aggro here, because of kind of the silliness that it results. Okay, so if nothing else, Tigrak probably has ditch a card, get a Nardu backed by a Spell Pierce for next turn. And in the meantime, I suppose try and deploy a Hex Parasite so that once your Nardu is down, you can get a bunch of triggers for life. Honor Bound considering whether he wants to burn a counterspell here, perhaps. Into the known Spell Pierce, decides no, or successfully bluffs me into believing he's got one. Tigrak attacks because not blocking a 3/4 with a 3/2. So these Ancestral Visions ticking to relevance. One of them comes off next upkeep. So presumably we're ditching something, Hex Parasite, to get probably Nardu, but I don't know if there's some trump. No, so Nardu. Now we're going to jam a Nardu with Spell Pierce back up into 4 mana. Seems like something that will fail in the face of a Mana Leak, and here is a Mana Leak. So no use Spell Piercing here. So lets it go. Drew a land for the second turn in a row. Tap land, sadly. Snarl Believers in shambles. So not holding up the Fauna Shaman activation, but instead trying to race. Interesting. So there's the idea that Honor Bound is about to draw a bunch of cards, and if you just went for another Nardu, one of the cards they drew would probably be another counterspell of some kind, and you'd be sort of playing this losing battle. And to attack for 6 for someone who's only attacking you for 3 is maybe a better strategy. Serum Visions doesn't tell us much. So it'd be interesting to see if Honor Bound deploys a creature here. Okay, so actually decides to pump the brakes. 6 cards in hand versus 2. Ancestral Vision on suspend. Biggest creature on the board that also flies. Seems like a reasonable time to stop attacking. So that attack from Tigrak last turn, pretty heads up really. Kind of change the nature of the match versus trying to force another Nardu through 6 cards. Okay, Honor Bound thinks Unctus is worth a forbid but not a buyback. Spell Pierce from Tigrak that's face up, presumably Spell Pierce back here? No. So Unctus does resolve. There are not good attacks here. We can activate Unctus paying 2 life to get an attack and a loot. I don't think you can possibly afford to block here. Oh, Honor Bound disagrees. Rather stay at 11 and have both creatures go. Okay. So facing 6 power, only islands in play, but lots of cards in hand, and an Ancestral Vision on suspend. And here's a 6/4 flyer, which is a 2-turn clock. Well, there is a Birds of Paradise. So end of turn, we discard our last card in hand, which was Fauna Shaman, and we pick up. Is it Nardu? Cannot get Nardu through a mana leak, as it stands, without drawing an untapped land. It was Nardu last time we got free choice of any creature in our library, but it doesn't necessarily follow it's Nardu this time. On a bound, I'm going to draw 4 cards before Tigrex next turn, so now is probably the time to try and make something happen. Can think of some kind of crazy uncounterable threat, but there probably doesn't exist in the deck list. Also, there probably isn't quite enough mana for one of those kind of Pearl Lake Ancient type things. This Tempest Djinn is more like a 3-turn clock with the Birds of Paradise to chump, unless there's an unsummon or something similar. Volatile Stormdrake doesn't really change that because you can chump with the Volatile Stormdrake. So it gets a Fate Stitcher. So actually, I guess, can kind of combo here, but the one drawn card is probably going to have to be relevant unless On a Bound's hand is garbage. So we could discard the Fate Stitcher, get another Fate Stitcher. Does that actually help? Maybe just cast a Fate Stitcher and then take 6 or 7. And then, somewhere between Yard and Battlefield there will be 2 Fate Stitchers and an Unctus. And that might be good enough. Maybe we can Fauna Shaman for a Malevolent Hermit to interact. Don't know if we really have enough mana for all this. Tigrex either not very good at the alphabet or thinking long and hard about what the right get is here. That's 3 open mana for On a Bound. So it gets another Fate Stitcher. Makes Birds of Paradise green and blue for loot. Loots away the Fate Stitcher, presumably. This is nice. 4 mana available. Okay, so we're going for it. But I think going for it involves resolving a... Well, how many lands can we tap with the Fate Stitchers and still combo? Maybe just 1. Loots away a forest. Is there some way in which we can kind of empty our library and get our lab man in hand and then tap an island or 2 and move to second main and play the lab man and still somehow have the ability to draw a card with birds or something? Yeah, with birds. I think this deck might be quite complicated, or at least I don't understand it. But it does look like Tigrex is attempting to, combo. Draw his whole deck, resolve a Laboratory Maniac. How realistic this is into 3 open mana 4 cards from On a Bound is not clear. They've already looted away another Fate Stitcher. I don't think that helps in any way. Because it's, but maybe it does. Maybe you can sort of tap 1 more island. There's only 4 mana available to Tigrex. And 1 of that mana is from a Fate Stitcher untap, so could be a tap an island instead of a mana. But it feels to me like they're just going to it into the teeth of the... Well, so I guess they could get to the point where they have a Spell Pierce and a Laboratory Maniac in hand. And they don't bother tapping any of Honorbound's islands. Instead, they just cast the Laboratory Maniac with a Spell Pierce available. Now, if they have to cast the Spell Pierce, they probably then don't have the ability to draw a card. Oh my god. Let's just watch what they do. A mere 28 cards from now, it will all become apparent. Seems like whatever they do, they're going to end up with whatever 2 cards they want of their choice in hand. There's no Dread Return this season, so it seems like one of them has to be Laboratory Maniac. And it also seems like they'll have a maximum of 1 other mana. So an obvious option would be Spell Pierce, I guess. This is a game that could probably be ended a lot sooner by Honorbound sharing a screenshot of their hand. But we'll see. Could just be a you know. The 3 islands look menacing, but they may not represent anything. Another way to get a final draw, if you manage to resolve the Labman, is by it's other blue creatures you control. Yes, so you could make Hex Parasite. So as well as birds tapping, looting, so drawing a card, Hex Parasite for 2 life could be made a blue artifact and attack. So yes, I think then that they are going to be able to try and resolve Laboratory Maniac with Spell Pierce backup, and then, assuming they win the war, turn Hex Parasite into a blue creature, and when it attacks it will draw from an empty library with Labman in play. So Honorbound may need kind of Mana Leak Spell Pierce rather than Forbid here. There's also the question of, does Unsummon, you know, the new Unsummon, I can't remember its name, do anything? Yes, it bounces the Labman. So Mana Leak Unsummon is good. Yeah. Tigrak has decided that it wasn't going to get better if his opponent resolves Ancestral Vision in their upkeep and has 7 mana and 8 cards. Okay. So, what is happening? Tigrak cast Run Afoul, trying to make Tempest Djinn die, and Honorbound thought it was worth casting Forbid with buyback on that. And that was mana leaked. So actually just a kind of value play in the end, right? Dig until such time as I have an answer to your threat and an answer to your counterspell, and don't attempt to win or put the whole game on the line here. Instead, just attempt to clear blockers and get in for 6. So a little bit like the ending to the game in the quarterfinal, where we were just, you didn't have time to combo. So I think there's a Fate Stitcher in the yard here, but only one. Just checking. No, there's not. But Honorbound obviously needs something. Just drew 4 cards. Tigrak, 11 cards in library, no cards in hand. 6 power in play across 3 bodies. So no permanents apart from an island put into play by Honorbound. So the obvious thing to do is attack all. But okay, there was a Fate Stitcher. I thought there was. I don't know why I didn't see it on my little review. Okay, we're going to make Birds of Paradise one bigger. Presumably we're going to make Hex Parasite one bigger. So now we're presenting a total of 9. So there's going to have to be a few of these unsummons. So 4, 6, 8, 9 power of blue, mostly artifact creatures coming in with the quintuple loot. Oh no, Fate Stitch is staying back. Why is that? I guess... Okay, so there's a Lagoon Breach, kind of an unsummon. And that drops all the power buffing. So now we're only coming in for 3 and the life total is 4. Wonder if we should have attacked with Fate Stitcher. Very hard to say, of course. And we have more interaction from Honor Bound, who's going to spend 4 mana on just a blocker. So it looks like they're... Oh well, can be tapped. So we start to see why Fate Stitcher was left back. No, Mana Leak also works. So thanks for putting Honor Bound to 1 here. It's not a huge army. On Tigrak's side, the Fate Stitch is going away, so it is 2 lethal threats into 2 cards. We already see the Whale as a potential blocker. This game has definitely gotten complicated. So there is 1 remaining Fate Stitcher in the yard. So we can present 3 lethal threats next turn. So tapping out for the Whale, whatever the remaining card is, I think is just bad. But if we have... Okay, Shackles, very good. Suspended Ancestral Vision, probably not going to matter. Now, you can untap Vidalcan Shackles with Fate Stitcher. So is Tigrak going to see that? Non-creature spells you control can't be countered from Benevolent Geist. So maybe we have a Naturalize here. Seems like Unearth Fate Stitcher, when you go to Shackles, one of my guys immediately untap the Shackles. Wait. Yeah, would work. So presumably Tigrak will see it as he's kind of a master of all this stuff. And I saw it and I'm definitely not. Okay, so he doesn't choose to untap Shackles, which I don't even know if that's the right move, but does tap the blocker, which is good enough for Hex Parasite and Fauna Shaman to get in there for the win. Funny. What a game. What a ridiculous game. So 1-1, and presumably the other matches progressed a long way by now, as this has been long. Oh, they're still playing, actually. So some long matches here. Looks like, in fact, Nadu is just 1-0 up in the other semi-final. So there's a Gigantha in play, and a Pippin, and a Whiskervale Forerunner, and a Hex Parasite. So Hex Parasite can target the Forerunner, which then looks for a creature card, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. So a lot going on over there. But meanwhile, into our game 3 here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about these players, but my brain's pretty fuzzed from a long day of Magic and trying to understand how to do things with Nardu and Fate Stitcher, but some pretty slick plays in that last game from Tigrek. So Hex Parasite into nothing. Honor Bound has nothing, has not suspended an Ancestral Vision. So presumably there are Nardus and counterspells in the various hands here. Wonder if Tigrek has a counterspell, and that's part of their motivation for doing nothing on turn 2 and now turn 3. Both players making their land drops. Maybe it's like a control mirror. They do both have counterspells, so they're one more than the other. Maybe thinking about a Lagoon Breach on this Hex Parasite here. Thinks better of it, whatever it was. Tigrek happy to feed a Malevolent Hermit to a Mana Leak here. Or maybe have a Mana Leak back up themselves. The interesting thing about the Malevolent Hermit is that if it is countered or dies, you do get to disturb it, and then it makes all your non-creature spells uncounterable. So if Tigrek has a Mana Leak, we'll probably see it here. Just having a 4-turn clock while you try to do your thing. Probably a lot worse than not. Hard to say. There's a lot to consider in this matchup. Now they've got the Hex Parasite down, I guess to resolve a Nardu would be pretty sick. Okay, so run afoul. Very spell pierceable, very mana leakable. There's a mana leak. Tigrek forced to accept that. So now Tigrek can resolve anything they want because Malevolent Hermit can say no to any counter spell. So maybe this is time to Nardu, then pump a bunch of life into Nardu, can draw 7 cards here if they want, and they do immediately start Hex Parasiting, get a Mana Leak, get a Hinterland Harbour, now Mana Leak up, Fauna Shaman to hand. So it looks like Bepis took down the semi-final 2-0. So it's either Bant Nardu versus Blue-Green Nardu or Bant Nardu versus this Honor-Bound Mono-Blue. Okay, stops at 7 after revealing a Kitesail Larcenist, as well as the Fauna Shaman on the Mana Leak that we saw. So a little bit of defense available here for Tigrek. I wonder if you trade Nardu for the 5/3, given that you're on 7 life and you're being attacked for 5 and you have 7 cards to opponent's 4 cards. What would have been great here was the Shackles on Nardu. Probably unbeatably good. Well, you could have Mana Leaked in, tap them out, I guess. Yeah, it does go for the trade. So they're like, I have 7 cards. I'm going to trade off here, but not before I get another Fauna Shaman. So 2 Fauna Shamans in hand. Going to 3 life. Reveals Sylvan Safekeeper, which is a lot more Nardu triggers if you had a Nardu, but Nardu's dying here. And yeah, going to 1 life just to have the maximum resources to untap with here. So Hex Parasite's work is done. Unctus in hand. It did have a Shackles, but decided that playing it out into the Mana Leak was no use. Tiger does not Mana Leak that, which is interesting. even with 10 cards in hand. Yeah, 10 cards in hand. So clearly gonna... So this, I mean, this shackle seems like a problem, but perhaps the answer is already in hand, given how quickly we let it resolve. I mean, even just taking Malevolent Hermit seems like it would cause a lot of trouble. Goes for Hex Parasite. Interesting choice. Okay, and we do have the answer. And so we can, I guess, nip in for 3 and hold up our mana leak. Discarding 2 to hand size. Maybe there's something we want to cast for 1 and just hold up Malevolent Hermit. Yeah. So Sylvan Safekeeper, and sort of over to you on a bound. You can deploy a threat. Shackle's no longer good because of Safekeeper. Discards a Fate Stitcher, perfect. Okay, on a bound doesn't immediately know what the plan is. Needs to Serum Visions. Can resolve any creature here, presumably. 0 top, 2 bottom, so the next draw is random. So here's a Storm Drake, which is lethal and does fly. So do you want to give them Safekeeper and have the Storm Drake? Or are you prepared to fight on with your 4 lands and your Birds of Paradise against a lethal flyer? So second lethal flyer. This one, gonna aim at birds, I guess. So I think, I mean, birds is better than the land here by quite a lot. So yeah, you just sack the island. So that decision was easy. But, so we have 2 Fauna Shaman. I think we saw an Unctus in hand. Fate Stitcher in the yard. But 2 lethal flyers. Maybe Nardu is good here. At least okay. Mana Leak in hand that we never used. That we revealed with Hex Parasite. Can probably attack with Malevolent Hermit. Probably be pretty happy to trade it for a Storm Drake. Okay, Kitesail Larcenist is going to take care of one of these Storm Drakes. Turn it into a treasure. The Unsummon is pretty crazy good here. Well. Oh. We targeted our own Hex Parasite.
Can't target Storm Drake with that.
Oh, it has Hexproof from triggered abilities. So it does. Stupid card, too many words. But it does fly and block. So we have a plan to live through Honor Bound's turn 8. Although I have to say, it's kind of a ropey plan. We do at least have the mana to activate Malevolent Hermit even after the chump from the birds. But we're going to need something. Mana Leak, Fauna Shaman, and I think Unctus are known in hand. None of those help, I don't think. On about only 2 cards. Ancestral Vision on layaway, but a long way away, just suspended it. It seemed like it would take too much to stabilize here, although if one of Honor Bound's cards is just Mana Leak or something, it's probably fine. Forest Nardu seems like it would... No, it doesn't beat Mana Leak, but it beats Forbid. Unctus does not seem like good news. That seems like we really need the loot of Malevolent Hermit attacking to find something. So run afoul and pray that Honorbound has no counterspell is probably the hope here. Honorbound looks like he has a whale. Yeah, trying to get rid of the hermit. I don't think we care about that really, because we're dead to the Drake. So we just need to find a 1-mana answer to the Drake. Can keep the hermit around with Safekeeper at the expense of this forest. Or over Hinterland Harbour maybe. Lets it happen. What about thinking about making more moves before the loot? Another whale? So Honorbound didn't have a whole hell of a lot, and if we do loot into our answer here, it's probably good unless it's Spell Pierce. Also lets Safekeeper go, puts it on bottom, put the Hermit on bottom as well. Loots away one of the 2 Fauna Shamans that is known. Honorbound goes to 7, no cards in hand. But Tigrak does not find the answer to the 3-2, and Honorbound is into the final. Nicely done. So it's Bant Nadu against Bant Nadu against Honorbound's mono blue tempo-ish control-ish. Ancestral Visions, Vidalcan Shackles, Tempest Djinn, etc.